All right, so your new movie, Digging for Fire,
Yeah.
Premiered last night.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Thanks, man.
It's one of my favorite.
Awesome.
One of my favorites from you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
It has your biggest cast ever.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually had to write it down because of all the names that are in the movie. So in addition to having Anna Kendrick and Jake Johnson returning, they were in Drinking Buddies,
Yeah.
and Melanie Linsky, who was in Happy Christmas.
Yeah.
You have Rosemary DeWitt, Sam Rockwell, Orlando Bloom, Judith Light, Mike Birbiglia, Sam Elliott, Jenny Slate, Ron Livingston, Brie Larson. How has working with a cast like that affected your work?
I don't know that it did. I mean, I think what happens on independent films is that you're typically not shooting in Los Angeles, which means you have to fly people to wherever you are. So you can't really ask Jenny Slate to come and be in a scene because you can't afford to fly her, you know, to like Atlanta or something like that to do a day of work. But shooting in LA was really great because everyone was around and amenable. So it was sort of like just having real serious talent available to kind of fill out every interesting conversation and every small moment of the movie. So, you know, I mean, it was just a total treat for me, like a dream experience of being like, oh man, you know who'd be really perfectly hilarious here? And then actually being able to call that person and, you know, sort of ask if they wanted to come and play.
How last minute were some of those calls? Because you do a lot of improvisation for your movies.
Well, I like to cast early actually. So all of the main roles were filled as far out as I could get them. So I actually remember having a first conversation with Sam Rockwell here at Sundance last year, which ended up being a full 4 months before we shot the movie. And with Jake, he and I were starting to talk about the idea that became this movie since the fall beforehand. So it's a kind of an extended writing period, and for me casting is always really important to happen early on in that process, but then a lot of those roles didn't get filled until like you know, the lead into the shoot when we knew more about the movie and kind of who would be pieced in there.
How much of a screenplay or a treatment did you have?
About as much as I ever have, you know. I tend to be writing more and more these days, and it's just become a more natural part of the process. You know, early on I didn't want to write anything, but I also was working with friends in Chicago, and you know, there was like not unlimited access to those people, but you know, they were in my social circle anyway, and so we would shoot those movies over 6 or 8 months, and you know, it'd be a very casual kind of get together whenever we could kind of thing. And as the production period's gotten quicker and as scheduling has gotten more difficult to work with these kinds of actors, it's sort of forced me to write a little bit more and have a clearer sense of what exactly the story is.
Do you have like a rough number of pages that you had?
I think on this one it was probably around 20 pages that we were working from, similar to Happy Christmas.
Right. And you also like to draw from your personal life or sometimes the personal life of your actors?
Yeah, for sure.
So what from this movie, I think Jake Johnson had an experience that's kind of...
Yeah, Jake in his, in this house that he rented in Atwater Village had found a bone and a gun in his yard, and it had sort of started he and his friends on this weird mission to see if they could find a dead body. I think they were all thinking about Stand By Me or something like that. Right. So that was a kernel of it, and he told me that story, and I thought that it was really, just really rich, fertile ground as a starting place of a guy finding a bone and a gun. It seemed like a really fun place to start a movie and see where we would go from there. And I'm bringing, always with my work, I'm trying to bring a pretty accurate representation of where I'm at and where my friends are at. And you know, since I had a kid, that's been a big change in my life. And you know, my friend group in Chicago are all starting to have kids and go through those changes. And you know, there's a lot. It sort of forces you to be less selfish, and it sort of pushes you into a realm of being a caretaker for another person. But as beautiful and amazing as that always is, you know, the selfish part never fully went away. You know, there's still a part of my personality that misses being able to just go see a movie at the last minute, or you know, call a friend and hang out whenever I want and sleep in on the weekend. You know, all the things little things that I didn't really realize were luxuries until they went away all of a sudden. And So that, you know, these kinds of things I'm always attempting to integrate.